Hey guys, good morning. Today we are going to discuss Mark chapter series. Today we are starting 6th chapter, verse 1 to 3 Bible study, 1 to 13 Bible study. And in this Bible study, 1 to 6 we can read Jesus is rejected by his hometown, and 7 to 13 verses Jesus sends out the 12. So these two we are going to discuss today. So now I am reading Mark chapter 6 verse 1 to 13. A prophet without honor. From first verse onwards I am reading. Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. The second verse, when the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things? They asked. What's this wisdom that has been given him, that he even does miracles? Isn't this the carpenter? Is not this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. The fourth verse, Jesus said to them, only in his hometown, among his relatives, and in his own house is a prophet without honor. He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them, and he was amazed at their lack of faith. From 7th verse to 13th verse, Jesus sends out the 12. Then Jesus went around teaching from village to village, calling the 12 to him. He sent them out two by two and gave them authority over evil spirits. These were his instructions: take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals but not an extra tunic. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, shake the dust off your feet when you leave, as a testimony against them. 12th verse, they went out and preached that people should repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. So, kindly repeat Mark chapter 6 verse 1 to 13 3 or 4 times, then you can understand what happened and what was going on in that passage. So now we are discussing in our Bible study some questions on from verse Mark chapter 6 verse 1 to 13. In the beginning we have already discussed that in two aspects we are discussing this Bible study. One is verse 1 to 6 we can see Jesus is rejected by his hometown, and the second part verse 7 to 13 Jesus sends out 12. Is that okay? So now we are going to discuss the first part, verse 1 to 6, Mark chapter 6. Jesus is rejected by his hometown. This is the main subheading we can give. So now we can prepare some questions from verse 1 to 6. So the first question we can prepare: where was Jesus' hometown? Where was Jesus' hometown? The second question: what did Jesus do there? And the third question: how did people react to him? Why did they recognize about Jesus in verse 2? So then why did they not accept him? What is the main idea of verse 4? Why do you think this is true? And 6, why couldn't Jesus do miracles? Seventh question: why couldn't Jesus do miracles there? Did he lose his power? And eighth question, last question: how did Jesus react to their rejection? If you can see the same passage, if you want, go to Matthew chapter 2 verse 23. You can see that Jesus grew up in Nazareth, and the same thing as well as Matthew chapter 13 verse 55. Isn't the carpenter's son? Yeah, we can see these references for the same passage. Now we are going to discuss one by one Jesus' hometown was in Nazareth. Yes, exactly. This is where he was raised and grew up after his family returned from Egypt to escape Herod. His disciple went with him, so this was a ministry trip and not just a quiet trip back to see his family. He had been preaching the gospel throughout the region, and here we see that he doesn't ignore his own hometown and relatives. Certainly he knew it wouldn't be easy preaching there and that he would not be received well, but did it anyway. On the Sabbath, Jesus went to the synagogue and taught. Many people gathered there to listen to him. Their initial reaction was astonishment. Yes, they realized that Jesus had extraordinary wisdom. They knew that he had also done amazing miracles. Intellectual, they could agree that Jesus' teaching were full of wisdom and that he himself was very powerful. And yet, despite their intellectual agreement and initial favorable conclusion, as a group they ended up rejecting Christ. The reason given in verse 3 is that they knew Jesus. His family was known to them. He had grown up there. Joseph was a carpenter, and therefore Jesus by extension was also a carpenter in their minds. It is nuclear. Why exactly this turned them off? Any ideas? Here has a few possibilities. Their pride kept them from believing in and following him. Jesus could not be a great prophet or even the Messiah since they knew him. He didn't come out of heaven. He grew up right in front of them, and now he had grown too big for his own shoes. If he knew his place, he would stop all of this illusion of grandeur and go back to his family, his town and his job where he belonged. Their jealousy kept them from believing in and following him. Jesus had grown popular and famous and had a large following. He had escaped the rural town. They wished they could have left it and made another life for themselves, but they couldn't. Yes, their guilt kept them from the believing and following him. The Pharisees and leaders rejected Jesus partially for this reason. These people too perhaps were unwilling to admit that Jesus' teachings were true and they needed to repent. Why should their own neighbor accuse them? Perhaps it was a combination of all of the above. Jesus said that a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. While others may respect and accept the prophet's teachings, many times his own family members wouldn't. There does sometimes seem to be a "how dare you teach me? Why do you think?" or attitude towards a family member who preaches the gospel with the rest of his family. What kind of applications we can apply from here? Jesus was not well received by his family. His own relatives and kinsmen rejected him. They didn't appreciate all of the good he was doing for others, but instead scorned him. The same is likely true of us today. If you are a believer in a non-believing family, do any of you face this type of situation? Do not be surprised if your family doesn't listen to you when you share with them. Rather, you can expect that it is likely. In fact, they may even scorn you or mock you, but don't get discouraged. Many of Jesus' family actually eventually believed in him, including James and Judas. Your family's positive or negative response doesn't absolve you from responsibility towards taking the message to them. Keep doing what you should do and praying that one day they will believe like much of Jesus' family did. Yes, exactly. Jesus is the first example, right? Now, Jesus could no miracle there. This is not because Jesus was limited in power. Rather, it seems that he made a conscious choice to heal any people who exercised faith in him. In Nazareth, there were few people who had this faith, and therefore he did few miracles there. He wondered at their unbelief. It was amazing to Jesus that those people who had seen such signs and miracles still refused to accept him. It defied all logic and common sense. This goes to show just how depraved and hardened man's heart is. So now we are going to discuss the second part. What is the second part? Here we have discussed Jesus sends out the 12 from Mark chapter 6 verse 7 to 13. Here we can prepare some questions, right? What did Jesus have the disciples do in this passage? Is at the end of their 3-year training period. Why did he wait to send them out until they knew more? Why do you think he sent them out in pairs? What were the benefits of this method? How can you follow this principle today? What instructions did he give them? And fourth question, why did he tell them not to take these things? Verse 8 to 9. How can we apply these principles today? What should they do? From parallel message in Luke chapter 10, whose house should they stay in? And what about if the town didn't listen to them? So before studying this text, clarify that it is recorded that Jesus sent out his disciples at least 2 or 3 different times, and each time they were given essentially the same strategy. If you can look at the Matthew chapter 10 verse 5 and Luke chapter 9 verse 1 and Luke chapter 10 verse 1, what implications might this method Jesus used for us in our efforts to accomplish the Great Commission? In small group study like Luke chapter 10 verse 1 to 10, and make 3 lists, right? The first list, the characters of a worthy persons of peace with verse references, right? Then list the task given to the ones Jesus commissioned, and list what Jesus told us not to do. So in this way we can find, right, what can you learn from this passage about sharing the gospel and discipling? There are many questions we can frame in this passage. How is this method, this verse, different from what we may to do? What do we need a watch out for in verse 3? Why are these prohibitions in verse 4? What is the man's peace? And how is finding this person important in evangelism? What might he look today? Why do not move from house to house? Is the consider supporting materially, financially this insider? Who is supporting who? How is this important? How could this be applied to missions, right? If you can look at the Luke chapter 10 verse 1 to 12, Luke account of Jesus sending out disciples. At the same time, you can look at Gospel Matthew chapter 10 verse 5 to 18, Matthew's account of the commissioning of the 12. Here today we had a discussion like Mark chapter 6 verse 1 to 13, and what we have discussed, the first 1 to 6 we have discussed Jesus is rejected by his own town, and verse 7 to 13 Jesus sends out the 12. So we will meet in next Bible study. God bless you. Thank you.